My name is Leonard Anderson. I'm 68 years old, and I'm sitting in this nursing home room where my supposed son Victor abandoned me 3 weeks ago, after beating me brutally. My ribs still ache when I take a deep breath, but the physical pain is nothing compared to the betrayal I uncovered. The man I raised for 4 decades, the one I gave all my effort and love to, is not my biological son. Now, looking out the small window of my room at the Willows, I wonder how I didn't see the signs earlier. But before I continue with the story, please click the like button. Subscribe to William's Revenge Stories, and comment where you're watching from. Your help is very important. It all started one Sunday morning. I was making coffee just like I always do, grinding the beans I buy at the local farmer's market. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but I keep certain routines that bring me pleasure. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled my small house when I heard someone open the front door without knocking. It could only be Victor, the only one with a key besides me. "Dad, where are you?" His voice sounded strange, like when he needed money or was in trouble. "In the kitchen, son," I replied, pouring a cup for myself and another for him, just like I always did when he visited, even though it was happening less and less. Victor walked into the kitchen and looked at me in a way that made me uncomfortable. At 42, my son was already showing a receding hairline and a gut that betrayed his love for beer. He was wearing an expensive shirt that contrasted with his worn-out jeans. Without greeting me properly, he sat at the table and refused the coffee. "I didn't come for coffee, Dad. I'm here to talk about something serious." I put my cup down and sat across from him. "What's wrong? Trouble at work? Or with Valerie, his wife, a woman who barely said a word to me at the few family gatherings we had? The house, Dad. I need you to sign some papers to sell it." I felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped on me. "Sell my house? What are you talking about? We already talked about this. You can't keep living alone. You fell last month and the neighbors had to help you. You're not at an age to live without supervision." I slipped in the shower. It could happen to anyone. Besides, it was just a few scratches. Victor slammed his fist on the table, making the cups jump and spill coffee. "It wasn't just scratches. They found you lying on the bathroom floor hours later. What if you'd had a heart attack? What if you'd broken your hip? This is my house, Victor. I lived here with your mother before she left us. I raised you here alone, working double shifts so you'd never lack anything. And I appreciate that. But it's time to think about the future. I found a perfect place for you, the Willows. They have doctors 24 hours a day, recreational activities, a nursing home." "You want to put me in a nursing home?" I interrupted him, feeling anger and disappointment mixing in my stomach. "It's not a nursing home. It's a senior living facility. And it costs money, Dad. Money we can get from selling this house. This house is my inheritance. It's the only thing I have to leave you when I'm gone." Victor let out a laugh that chilled my blood. "I don't need you to leave me anything. What I need is for you to not be a burden right now. We sell the house, pay for the facility in advance for a few years, and everyone's happy. I'm not signing anything. This house is mine, and I'm staying here." I saw his face change. His eyes darkened, and he pressed his lips into a grimace I had never seen before. He stood up slowly, looking at me like I was an annoying insect. "You've always been a stubborn old man. That's why Mom left you. That's why it's so hard for me to come see you." His words hurt me more than any physical blow. "Your mother left us for another man, not because of my stubbornness. And if you don't come to see me, it's because every time you do, it's to ask for money." "You don't know anything," he shouted, getting so close I could smell the alcohol on his breath, even though it was barely 10 in the morning. "I lent you money last year to fix the roof, and you never paid me back, because that money was mine to begin with. I gave it to you to hold on to after I sold the car, and then you lent it to me like it was yours." His hand came up so fast I couldn't dodge it. The slap made me stagger and fall against the wall. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth as I looked at him in disbelief. "Victor, you've never raised your hand to me," I murmured, wiping the blood from my lip. "Well, it's about time, you ungrateful old man. I've taken care of you for as long as I can remember. And what have I gotten in return? Complaints, and more complaints." I tried to get up, but Victor pushed me against the wall again. "You're going to sign those papers today, do you understand me? And you'll do it the easy way or the hard way. I'm not signing anything. This house is all I have. What followed is something I still struggle to remember without my hands shaking. Victor, my own son, beat me in a way I never thought anyone could. Punches to the face, kicks when I fell to the floor. As I covered my head with my arms, all I could think was, where had I failed as a father to raise such a monster? "Sign the damn papers," he screamed between hits. When he finally stopped, I was lying on my kitchen floor, gasping, blood staining the white tiles I had worked so hard to keep clean. "I'll give you until tomorrow to think about it," he said, breathing heavily as he straightened his shirt. "I'll be back with a notary, and you will sign. Or I swear, next time I won't stop." He slammed the door on his way out, making the walls tremble. I stayed there on the floor, too weak to get up, feeling tears mix with the blood. It wasn't the physical pain that broke me, but the certainty that I had failed completely as a father. That night, aching and terrified, I packed a few belongings in a small suitcase. Old photographs, some important documents, my pocket watch inherited from my father. I planned to leave early, before Victor returned, to seek refuge with an old friend. But I didn't get the chance. At 6 in the morning, when I had barely managed to get dressed due to the bruises covering my body, I heard the front door again. This time there were 3 sets of footsteps. Victor wasn't alone. "Dad, come out from wherever you are. I brought Dr. Mitchell to check on you and Mr. Fields for the papers." I locked myself in the bathroom, my heart beating so hard I was afraid I'd have a heart attack right there. "Leave me alone, Victor. I'm not signing anything." I heard murmurs, then footsteps approaching the bathroom door. "Mr. Anderson," an unknown voice spoke. "I'm Dr. Mitchell. Your son is worried about your mental state. He says you've been having violent episodes. I need to examine you." "That's a lie. He was the one who hit me yesterday. Look at his knuckles." More murmurs. Then the supposed doctor's voice. "Mr. Anderson, if you don't open the door, I'll have to declare you incapable of making decisions for yourself due to your erratic and paranoid behavior. Your son will have to assume legal custody." I understood Victor's plan then. If I didn't sign willingly, they would declare me mentally incompetent, and he could take control of everything without my consent. I was trapped. I opened the door slowly. The man in front of me, with a white coat and a stethoscope around his neck, his eyes widened when he saw my bruised face. "What happened to your face?" he asked, genuinely surprised. Before I could answer, Victor intervened. "I told you, doctor, he falls constantly. He can't take care of himself anymore." "This doesn't look like a fall," the doctor said, examining my wounds. "It looks like a beating." "He hit me," I said, pointing at Victor. "Yesterday, because I refused to sign the papers to sell my house." The doctor looked at Victor with suspicion, but my son already had an answer ready. "See? Paranoid delusions. Last week he said the neighbors were stealing food from his refrigerator. He needs specialized care." "I never said that," I protested. But I could see the doubt in the doctor's eyes. The third man, supposedly a notary, remained silent, watching the scene with obvious discomfort. "Doctor," he finally said, "I'm not sure I want to be a part of this. I came to certify a voluntary signature, not this." "You'll be paid double," Victor replied curtly, and the notary looked down. But he didn't leave. The doctor examined me superficially, asking basic orientation questions. My name, the date, the president's name. I answered everything correctly, to his evident surprise. "Your father is perfectly lucid, Mr. Anderson," he finally said. "I see no reason to declare him incompetent." Victor's expression hardened. "Doctor, let's talk in private." As they walked down the hall, the notary looked at me with a mixture of pity and shame. "I'm sorry, sir," he muttered. "I didn't know. I used that moment to show him the bruises on my ribs. My son did this to me yesterday. Please, help me." The man turned pale and nodded almost imperceptibly. When Victor and the doctor returned, the doctor's attitude had changed. He avoided looking me in the eye. "I've reconsidered the situation," he said in a monotone voice. "Mr. Anderson shows signs of mild cognitive decline and needs constant supervision. I recommend his admission to a specialized facility." I stared at the doctor in disbelief. "How much did my son pay you?" "Get your things ready, Dad," Victor ordered, ignoring my question. "We're taking you to the Willows right now. The doctor will come with us to supervise your admission." "And the house papers?" the visibly nervous notary asked. "We'll sign them there. Bring your briefcase." I had no chance to resist. Between Victor and the doctor, they dragged me out of my own home, carrying only the small suitcase I had packed the night before. The neighbors watched from their windows, but no one intervened. Who would question a concerned son taking his elderly father to a facility with medical help? During the car ride, I was silent, processing what was happening. My son, my own blood, was stripping me of everything for money. How had we gotten to this point? The Willows turned out to be a two-story building on the outskirts of the city, with a neglected garden and a faded sign. Nothing like the luxury residence Victor had described. While they were checking me in at reception, I heard the doctor murmur to my son, "This place isn't what you described to me. The rate is much lower." "The important thing is that he has medical care," Victor replied. "The rest of the money is to pay off the debts he's generated." "What debts?" I asked, but I was ignored. A middle-aged woman in a white uniform led me to a small room with two beds, one of them occupied by an old man snoring loudly. "This will be your room, mister." "Anderson," she said with a rehearsed smile. "Mr. Johnson will be your roommate. Dinner at 6, medication at 8, lights out at 9. When the woman left, Victor came in with the papers. "Sign here, here, and here," he said, pointing to several lines at the bottom of documents he wouldn't let me read. "What am I signing?" "The transfer of the house to my name and the authorization for me to manage your finances. It's for your own good, Dad. You're no longer in a condition to handle these things." I looked at the papers and then at my son. In his eyes there wasn't a trace of affection or remorse, just impatience and greed. "If I don't sign, what will you do? Beat me again?" "Not here," he replied with a cruel smile. "But I can make your stay very long and very unpleasant. You sign, and I'll come visit you every week with your grandkids. I'll bring you those candies you like so much. You don't sign, and no one will ever know where you are." With trembling hands, I signed each document. Not because I was afraid of more beatings, but because in that moment I understood that I had lost my son forever, if I ever really had him. "Good boy," he said, gathering the papers and putting them in his briefcase. "I'll see you on Sunday. Behave yourself." And just like that, he left. The notary, who had remained silent during the whole process, gave me one last look before following him. In his eyes, I saw shame, but also relief that the dirty business was over. I was left alone in that unfamiliar room, with a stranger snoring in the next bed, stripped of my home, my dignity, and my family. I looked out the small window, watching Victor's car drive away, and I wondered at what point my life had taken such a desolate turn. What I didn't know then was that this terrible moment was only the beginning, that in that nursing home I would find not only the truth about my supposed son, but also the strength to reclaim control of my life and uncover secrets that had been hidden for 4 decades. Secrets that would change my definition of family forever. 3 days after my arrival at the Willows, I'm still sitting by this window, watching the neglected garden as I try to adapt to my new reality. My roommate, Mr. Johnson, turns out to be less annoying than I initially thought. At 74, Peter Johnson is a quiet man who spends most of the day reading detective novels with a small magnifying glass. His snoring, which bothered me so much the first night, is now part of the background noise I'm getting used to. "Is your son coming to visit you on Sunday?" Peter asks, without looking up from his book. "That's what he said." I reply, instinctively touching my face. The bruises have started to turn a yellowish color, but the pain lingers, especially in my ribs. Sundays are visiting days. Lots of noise, lots of kids running down the halls. He pauses and finally looks at me. "My daughter has come every Sunday for 5 years. She's never missed a single visit." His comment, said without malice, makes me feel even worse. Will Victor really come as he promised? And if he does, do I really want to see him? "Who did that to your face?" Peter asks, closing his book. "If you don't mind me asking." I hesitate for a moment. I haven't spoken to anyone about what happened. Partly out of shame, partly because no one has asked. "My son," I finally reply, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. Peter nods slowly, not surprised. "Mine tried it too. He wanted the house to sell it and pay his gambling debts. My daughter stopped him. That's why she comes to see me." And he doesn't. We sit in silence for a moment, united by that strange camaraderie that arises between those who have suffered similar betrayals. "And you don't have any other family?" I ask. "Just my daughter Carla and my grandkids." My wife died 10 years ago. And you? Just Victor. Or so I thought until recently. Peter looks at me curiously, but doesn't ask any more questions. It's one of the things I've learned to appreciate about him. He knows when not to push. The door to our room opens and a young man in his 30s, tall and thin, in the blue uniform of the nursing home staff, enters. He's carrying a tray of medications. "Good morning, gentlemen. Time for vitamins and supplements," he says with a smile that, unlike most of the staff, seems genuine. "Good morning, Jason," Peter replies. "How's your mother?" "Better, Peter, thanks for asking. They already took out her stitches from the operation." While the young man gives Peter his pills, he observes me carefully. "Mr. Anderson, how are those bruises? Does it hurt when you breathe?" I'm surprised by his question. It's the first time anyone on the staff has shown interest in my injuries. Yes, a little, I admit. But I'm getting better. "You should have seen a real doctor, not that quack who brought you in," he mutters, handing me a small cup with 2 pills. "These are for the pain and inflammation." "Dr. Peterson prescribed them yesterday after he reviewed your admission file." "Dr. Peterson. I don't remember being examined by any doctor here." Jason leans in and lowers his voice. "He didn't examine you personally. He reviewed your admission papers and noticed inconsistencies. The diagnosis of cognitive decline has no medical basis." I feel my heart speed up. "Does that mean I can get out of here?" Jason's expression turns serious. "It's not that simple, Mr. Anderson. Your son has legal custody of you according to the documents submitted. Dr. Peterson is investigating the legitimacy of those papers. But it will take time. That Dr. Mitchell, he didn't do any real evaluation. He asked me a couple of basic questions and then spoke privately with Victor. After that, his whole attitude changed." Jason nods. "Dr. Peterson suspects as much. That's why he's reviewing the case very carefully." As he talks, Jason changes the sheets on my bed with efficient movements. When he lifts my pillow, he sees the small suitcase I keep hidden there. "You should keep your belongings in the closet, Mr. Anderson." "I prefer to keep them close," I reply. I don't tell him I'm afraid someone will search or steal them if I leave them in the closet. "I understand," he says, and I see in his eyes that he truly understands. "If you want, I can keep them in a safer place." I hesitate for a moment, but something about this young man's sincerity makes me trust him. "Thank you, but no. They're just memories, nothing valuable." Jason finishes tidying the room and heads to the door. Before leaving, he stops and looks at me. "Mr. Anderson, you're not alone here. There are people who care." When the door closes behind him, Peter lets out a small chuckle. "That boy is an angel. He works here to pay for his sick mother's treatments." There are few like him left in this world. The rest of the day passes with the monotonous routine of the nursing home. Bland breakfast in the communal dining room, an hour of recreational activities, which mostly consists of watching television in a common room. Lunch, a mandatory nap, and an early dinner. At 9 o'clock the main lights go out, leaving only a dim light in the hallways. As I try to sleep, listening to Peter's soft snores, I can't help but think about my empty house. The family photographs on the walls. The small garden I cultivated for years, all lost to the greed of the man I thought was my son. Sunday arrives, and, to my surprise, Victor shows up just as he promised. He comes alone without the grandkids he mentioned, and visits me for exactly 20 minutes. His conversation is superficial, asking about the food, my room, the other residents. He doesn't mention the bruises, which have already started to fade, nor the documents he made me sign. "The house is already for sale," he comments casually while looking at his watch. "There's an interested buyer. The deal should close in a few weeks." I feel a pang of pain that has nothing to do with my physical wounds. "And what about my things?" "I have photos, memories. I'll store them, don't worry," he replies. But he doesn't look me in the eye. I know he's lying. Everything will probably end up in the trash or sold at some flea market. And the papers from the safe? I keep important documents in there. Victor tenses visibly. "What safe?" "The one behind the painting in my bedroom. I keep the original deeds, my will, old photos." "It's a lie. There's no safe in my house." But Victor's reaction confirms he's anxious to make sure he has all the legal documents. "I didn't know you had a safe." "What's the combination?" "It's not a combination, it's a key. The key is in my suitcase." His eyes light up with greed. You brought it here? Give it to me. I'll take care of getting those papers. My suitcase is kept in the storage room at the nursing home. I lie again. I'd have to ask for it. Victor looks at his watch again. I don't have time now. I'll come back tomorrow, specifically for that. Have your suitcase ready. He stands up and, without a proper goodbye, leaves the visiting room. I watch him walk away and feel a mix of relief at his departure and anguish at knowing he'll be back tomorrow, expecting a key that doesn't exist for a safe I imagined. That night I can't sleep. Victor's visit has reopened wounds that were just beginning to heal. I mentally review everything I packed in my small suitcase, wondering if there's anything in there I can use to defend myself, to get back some of what they've taken from me. At 3 a.m, unable to sleep, I pull the suitcase out from its hiding place under the bed and open it silently so as not to wake Peter. The moonlight filtering through the window is enough to see the contents. I review the documents I saved. My birth certificate, some paid bills, old photos. Among them, one stops me cold. Brenda holding a newborn Victor in the hospital. I had never noticed a detail, the date in the corner of the photograph. February 1983. I do a quick calculation and something doesn't add up. In February 1983, I was working in Texas on the oil rigs. I didn't return to the city until April of that year. With trembling hands, I searched through the documents for my old oil company ID. There it is, confirming my stay in Texas from October 1982 to April 1983. How could I have been present at my son's birth if I was hundreds of miles away? I vaguely remember that when I returned, Brenda introduced me to our son, saying he had been born prematurely. I never questioned anything. I was so happy to have a son that the details didn't matter. Besides, back then, communication from the rigs was difficult. I knew Brenda was pregnant when I left for Texas, and I just assumed everything had happened as it should. But now, looking at these dates, a terrible doubt settles in my mind. Is Victor really my biological son? I continue reviewing the documents with greater attention. Among them I find Victor's birth certificate. Father, Leonard Anderson. There's my name. But did I really sign that document? I examine the signature, and although it looks like mine, I notice small differences. It's as if someone tried to imitate it. My mind is a whirlwind of questions and suspicions. If Victor isn't my son, who is his real father? Did Brenda know all this time? Does Victor himself know? As I reorganize the documents to put them away, a folded piece of paper falls out from between the pages of my old address book. It's a letter, dated May 1983, shortly after my return from Texas. A letter I never read. Dear Leonard, the letter begins in Brenda's unmistakable handwriting. When you read this, I'll probably be gone. I can't keep living with this lie. Victor is not your son. During your absence, I had a relationship with Greg, your cousin. The baby is his, but he doesn't want to take responsibility. I made you believe he was premature so the dates would match your return. Forgive me for this betrayal, but I had no other choice. Greg has abandoned me, and I can't raise this child alone. I know you will love him as if he were your own. Someday I will find the courage to tell you the truth in person. The letter isn't signed, and it's clear it was never sent. Brenda probably wrote it in a moment of guilt, but didn't have the courage to give it to me or mail it. The pieces fit now. Brenda left me 5 years later, leaving me with a child that wasn't mine. My cousin Greg disappeared from our lives around the same time, supposedly moving to another state. I never connected the two events until this moment. Raising Victor alone, I worked twice as hard to give him everything. I loved him as my own son because I believed he was. And now, 40 years later, I discover that my whole life has been a lie, that the man who beat me, who stripped me of everything, doesn't even carry my blood. Silent tears fall in the documents as I try to process this revelation. How many other lies are there in my life? Who else knew the truth? A gentle touch on my shoulder startles me. Peter is standing by my bed, looking at me with compassion. Sorry to intrude, Leonard, but I heard you crying. Are you okay? Wordlessly. I hand him the letter. He takes his glasses from his pajama pocket and reads it slowly. Oh, my friend, he says finally, handing it back. Life certainly throws us some curveballs. 40 years, I murmur. 40 years raising another man's son. A man who has now taken everything from me. Peter sits on the edge of my bed. What are you going to do? That's a good question. What can a 6-8-year-old man do, locked in a nursing home, with no money or property? I don't know. I admit. Victor is coming tomorrow looking for a key that doesn't exist. When he finds out I lied. We have to buy time, Peter says, surprising me with his use of we. And we need help. That young man Jason seems trustworthy. But how? What could he do? For starters, he could help us contact someone on the outside. Don't you have a friend, a relative who can help you? I think of my old coworkers, but most of them are in the same situation as me, or worse. I haven't kept in regular contact with anyone for years. I can't think of anyone, I reply, defeated. And that doctor Jason mentioned, the one reviewing your case, Dr. Peterson, he might be an option. Then it's settled. Tomorrow we'll talk to Jason to help us contact the doctor. In the meantime, we need to stall your son. How? Peter smiles, showing a cunningness that surprises me. Tell him you forgot where you hid the key, that the shock of the move mixed up your memories. Make him think you're more disoriented than you really are. Let him think he's right about your mental state. The idea seems ingenious. Pretend confusion to buy time. It might work. Now put those papers away and get some rest. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. Peter goes back to his bed and soon starts snoring softly. I carefully put the documents, especially Brenda's letter, at the bottom of my suitcase and hide it under the bed again. I lie back, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. Despite the terrible revelation, I feel a strange calm. At least now I understand why Victor was always so different from me. So emotionally distant. We don't share the same blood. He's not really my son. But this opens up other disturbing questions. If Victor isn't my son, do I have a real son somewhere? Did Brenda have other secrets I never discovered? And most disturbing of all, does Victor know the truth about his origin? With these questions swirling in my mind, I fall asleep just as the first rays of sun begin to filter through the window. Tomorrow is another day. And for the first time since I arrived at this nursing home, I have a purpose, a plan, and something that no legal document can take away from me. The truth. Sitting in this chair by the window, I watch the rain fall on the nursing home garden. It's been 5 days since I found Brenda's letter. 5 days since my world fell apart for the second time. Victor's visit the next day went exactly as Peter suggested. I pretended to be confused about the key's location. I mixed up memories. I acted as if I really had cognitive problems. What do you mean you don't remember where you put the key? Victor yelled at me, losing his patience after 20 minutes of my confusing explanations. Sometimes I keep it in the shoebox, other times in the hollow book. I replied with a trembling voice, playing the part of a disoriented old man. What hollow book? You never told me about a hollow book, didn't I? I was sure I'd shown it to you. I rubbed my forehead, feigning concern. Everything's been so confusing lately. I saw the frustration on his face, but also something else. Satisfaction. My supposed confusion validated his decision to put me in here. I told you you couldn't live alone, Dad. Look at you, forgetting important things. You're right, son, I replied meekly, swallowing my pride. Maybe this is for the best. He left, promising to return next Sunday, visibly annoyed at not getting the key, but convinced that my mental state justified my confinement. That same afternoon, Jason came into our room with the medication cart. After making sure no one was listening, he informed us. Dr. Peterson is coming tomorrow. I told him about your situation, and he wants to talk to you personally. The news gave me a ray of hope. Peter winked at me from his bed, proud that our little plan was starting to take shape. Dr. Rodrigo Peterson turned out to be a man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and a serious expression behind his wire-rimmed glasses. He examined me in the nursing home's infirmary, away from prying ears. These bruises are not from a fall, he said, checking my ribs, and your previous medical history shows no signs of cognitive decline. In fact, your last checkup, done just 6 months ago, indicates perfect mental health for someone your age. My son paid Dr. Mitchell to lie, I explained. He wanted my house and knew I wouldn't give it to him willingly. Dr. Peterson frowned. That constitutes several serious crimes: assault, fraud, falsifying medical documents. Does that mean I can get out of here? It's not that simple, Mr. Anderson. Legally, your son now has custody of you and has sold your house. We would need to file a formal complaint and have the case investigated. Plus, you would need to undergo an independent psychiatric evaluation to nullify Dr. Mitchell's diagnosis. How long would all that take? Months, probably. The courts don't rush these cases. I sank into the chair, discouraged. By then, I'll have lost everything. There's another complication, the doctor added, reviewing some papers. At your admission, your son presented a power of attorney giving him full authority to manage your assets. Do you remember signing that document? I remembered the papers Victor made me sign at the nursing home, without letting me read them. He forced me to sign several documents. I don't know exactly what they contained. I see. Dr. Peterson was silent for a moment, thinking. Mr. Anderson, to help you, I need to know the whole truth. Is there anything else I should know? Any other relatives who can support you? I decided to trust him completely. I told him about Brenda's letter, about discovering Victor wasn't my biological son. I showed him the documents from my suitcase, including the old oil company ID, which proved my absence during Victor's birth. The doctor examined everything carefully. This letter, although unsigned, could be an important element. Do you have any other correspondence from your ex-wife to compare the handwriting? Not here, but maybe at my house, if Victor hasn't thrown everything away already. And what about your cousin Greg, the supposed biological father? Do you have any way to contact him? I shook my head. We lost touch decades ago. Last I heard, he had moved to the United States. Dr. Peterson took some notes and then looked at me directly. There's one test that could definitively resolve the paternity issue. A DNA test between you and Victor. Do you think he would agree to that? Probably not voluntarily. But if we start legal proceedings, we could request the test as part of the investigation. While we were discussing the options, Jason hurried into the infirmary. Doctor, excuse the interruption, but there's a social worker here asking for Mr. Anderson. She says she's here about an anonymous report of mistreatment. Dr. Peterson and I exchanged surprised glances. Who would have filed such a report? Show her in, the doctor instructed. Moments later, a woman in her 40s, wearing a formal suit and carrying a briefcase, entered the room. She introduced herself as Susan Randall, a social worker from Adult Protective Services. We received an anonymous complaint about a possible case of physical abuse and financial exploitation, she explained, looking at my almost faded bruises. Are you Leonard Anderson? Yes, I am. Can you tell me how you came to be in this nursing home and what happened to your face? For the next hour, I recounted my entire story to the social worker, who took meticulous notes. Dr. Peterson supported my account with his medical observations and the inconsistencies he had found in my admission. What you're describing is extremely serious, Mr. Anderson, Susan said when I finished. Physical abuse, coercion, possible falsification of medical documents. Illegal. I need to document these bruises and take your formal statement. She took out a small camera and photographed my injuries, even though they were quite faded. Then she had me sign a detailed statement of the facts. What happens now? I asked. I will launch an immediate investigation. The first step is to verify the legitimacy of the custody documents and the medical diagnosis. We also need to determine if the sale of your house was legal. My son Victor has already put the house up for sale. I can request an injunction to stop any transaction until the situation is clarified, Susan explained. But I need to ask you something important. Do you wish to press formal charges against your son for assault? The question took me by surprise. Despite everything he had done, the idea of seeing Victor face criminal charges gave me mixed feelings. I don't know, I answered honestly. I just want my house and my independence back. I understand. For now, we'll focus on the civil part of the case. The criminal matter can wait. Before leaving, Susan gave me her card. I will keep you informed of all progress. Please contact me if you remember any additional details or if your son tries to pressure you again. When we were alone, Dr. Peterson looked at me curiously. That's strange. Anonymous complaints don't usually get such a quick response from APS. Who do you think could have filed the complaint? The doctor shrugged, but I noticed he avoided looking me directly in the eye. Anyone who witnessed your arrival at the nursing home with those bruises. An employee, perhaps. I suspect it was him who alerted the authorities, but I didn't press him on it. I was grateful for any help, no matter where it came from. When I returned to my room, I found Peter in high spirits. "I saw the social worker," he said as soon as I entered. "She seems like a competent woman." "She is. She started an investigation and says she might be able to stop the sale of my house." "Excellent. But we shouldn't get complacent. Your son won't just stand by when he finds out." Peter was right, as always. Not even 2 days passed before Victor showed up at the nursing home, furious and threatening. Fortunately, I was in the common room with other residents when he arrived, which limited his ability to intimidate me. "What have you done, you old fool?" he hissed, sitting next to me while pretending to be interested in the TV show we were watching. "Do you know that some woman named Susan Randall has frozen the sale of the house? Did you contact her?" "I don't know what you're talking about, Victor," I replied, keeping up my act of confusion. "Who's Susan? Don't play dumb with me. Someone filed a complaint saying I abuse you and that I took the house by force." "Was it you?" "I haven't spoken to anyone," I said, which was technically true at the time Susan was contacted. "I barely know anyone here." Victor studied me suspiciously. The buyer backed out. "He says he doesn't want legal problems." "Do you have any idea how much money I've lost?" "I'm sorry, son," I muttered, looking down. "I didn't mean to cause you problems." I saw his expression soften slightly, believing my submissive act. "Listen to me closely. I'm going to resolve this misunderstanding, and you are going to cooperate. When that social worker comes to talk to you, you'll tell her it was all an accident, that you fell on your own, and that you gave me the house voluntarily because you couldn't maintain it anymore." I nodded weakly, knowing I had no intention of doing such a thing. Victor left shortly after, visibly nervous but confident his intimidation had worked. That same afternoon, Jason brought me surprising news. "Mr. Anderson, there's a phone call for you in the office. It's Miss Randall, in the small administrative office." I picked up the phone with some anxiety. "Hello?" "Mr. Anderson, I have important information," Susan said without preamble. "We've verified the medical certificate your son submitted." "Doctor, Mitchell isn't even registered with the medical board in that specialty. He's a fraud." A huge weight lifted from my shoulders. "So, can I get out of here?" "Not yet. We need a court order to nullify the legal custody. But we're moving quickly. I've also discovered something else. Your son has withdrawn almost all the funds from your bank account." "What?" "But my pension was deposited there." "I know, and that's another crime we'll add to the complaint. But there's something else. Something I think you should know." She paused, as if hesitating. "During the investigation, while reviewing family records, we found interesting entries about your ex-wife." "Brenda." My heart sped up. "What kind of records?" "Birth records. Apparently, Brenda had another child, about a year after you separated. A boy named Elliot, born in 1989. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. "Are you sure?" "Completely. The birth certificate lists Brenda Morgan as the mother. And the father is blank. The child only has her maiden name. And where is this? Elliot, now. That's been harder to track down. Brenda passed away 7 years ago. Did you know?" "No," I admitted, a lump in my throat. Although our separation had been painful, there was a time when I loved that woman deeply. "I didn't know. Elliot should be about 36 now. We're trying to locate him. He could be important to the case, especially considering what you told us about Victor's paternity." After hanging up, I returned to my room in a state of shock. Peter looked at me with concern. "Bad news?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I just found out that Brenda had another son after she left us. A son who would be 36 now. And you think he could be your real son?" "It's possible. The dates line up with our separation. Maybe she got pregnant just before she left, or shortly after. And she never told you? She never tried to contact you?" "Never." The thought hurt me deeply. Maybe she was afraid I'd take the child, or demand support. Or maybe the father was someone else, and she didn't want me to know. Peter was silent for a moment, respecting my confusion. "Whatever the case, you now have a chance to know the truth." The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Susan called regularly with updates on the case. The judge had issued a temporary order prohibiting Victor from disposing of my assets or withdrawing more money from my accounts. The sale of the house was officially suspended, and most importantly, they had located Elliot Morgan. He lives in Ohio, Susan informed me over the phone. He's a civil engineer. He's married and has 2 young children. Have you told him anything about me? I only informed him that we were investigating a case related to his mother and that we needed to talk to him. He agreed to come to the city this weekend. Do you think I should meet him? I think it would be beneficial for both of you, Mr. Anderson, but the final decision is yours. After much thought, I decided I wanted to meet Elliot. If there was a chance he was my biological son, I deserved to know, and so did he. On Saturday morning, Jason helped me get dressed in my best clothes, the only decent shirt and pants I had brought to the nursing home. I was as nervous as a teenager before a first date. You look good, Leonard, Jason assured me, adjusting my shirt collar. Relax, everything will be fine. Peter gave me an encouraging pat before I left. Remember, no matter what happens, you're still you. The meeting was held in a small private room at the nursing home, normally reserved for special occasions. Susan was already there when I arrived, reviewing some documents. Mr. Anderson, are you ready? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Does he know who I am? Why we're meeting? I've explained the basic situation, that you were his mother's husband, and that there are circumstances suggesting you might be his biological father. He's quite shocked, as you can imagine, but he agreed to the meeting and to a DNA test if you're also willing. Before I could answer, the door opened. And there, standing in the doorway, was a man who took my breath away. It was like looking at myself 30 years ago. The same defined chin, the same almond-shaped eyes, even the same eyebrow shape. He was wearing a light blue shirt and dark pants, and he was holding a folder against his chest like a shield. Mr. Anderson? His voice was deep. I stood up, shaky. Yes, you must be Elliot. We just stared at each other, studying one another, looking for the features that would confirm or deny our possible relationship. You look a lot like my grandfather, Elliot finally said, with a mix of awe and suspicion. I have photos of him when he was young. It's unsettling. And you look like me at your age, I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. Please, sit down. We have a lot to talk about. Elliot sat across from me, while Susan discreetly moved to a corner of the room, giving us space but remaining present as a mediator. Your mother never told me about you, I began, feeling I should be completely honest from the start. I only found out you existed a few days ago. She didn't talk much about you either, Elliot replied. She just said her first husband was a good man, but they couldn't stay together. She never mentioned the possibility that you were my father. Who did you think your father was then? Elliot shrugged. Some man she dated briefly after she left you, that's what she always told me. That he didn't want to take responsibility, and that's why I only had her last name. I see. I took a deep breath. Elliot, I don't know if I'm your biological father, but there are good reasons to believe so, and I'd like to find out. Would you agree to a DNA test? Elliot nodded slowly. That's why I came. I need to know the truth. While Susan explained the procedure for the DNA test, I couldn't stop looking at Elliot, searching every gesture, every expression, for a reflection of myself. Whether he was my son or not, this meeting had changed something fundamental in me. For the first time since arriving at the nursing home, I felt hope. The future, which just a few weeks ago seemed like a dark path to loneliness and abandonment, now opened up before me with possibilities I had never imagined. If Elliot turned out to be my son, I would have a second chance at being a father, and if he wasn't, at least I would have faced the truth with dignity. Meanwhile, the investigation against Victor was moving forward, and he would soon have to face the consequences of his actions. Justice, slow but sure, was beginning to move in my favor. It's been 2 weeks since my meeting with Elliot, and I'm sitting by the window of my room in the nursing home again, watching the clouds cross the sky. Beside me on the small table rests a sealed envelope containing the results of the DNA test. It arrived this morning, but I still haven't found the courage to open it. Peter has left me alone, understanding that I need this private moment. I think about everything that has happened since that Sunday when Victor beat me in my own kitchen. How in just 1 month my life has taken turns I never imagined. The loss of my home. The discovery that Victor wasn't my son. And now, the possibility of having a real son, one who carries my blood. Elliot and I talked for hours that day in the private room. He told me about his life in Ohio, about his wife Mary, an elementary school teacher, and their 2 children, Sam, 7, and Lucy, 5. He showed me pictures of them on his phone. They have my eyes, I thought, though I didn't dare say it out loud. He told me that Brenda never remarried, although she had a few brief relationships. That she worked as a secretary at a law firm until kidney disease gradually weakened her. She died in 2018, with Elliot by her side, never revealing the truth about his father. You never asked about him? I asked, while Susan served us coffee. Of course I did. Constantly when I was a kid, he replied, stirring his coffee without drinking it. Mom always said the same thing, that it was a brief romance, that he didn't want to take responsibility, that we were better off alone. Over time, I stopped asking. And you never suspected it could be me? After all, she had been married to me. Elliot shook his head. Mom was always very clear that she had separated from you before she met my father. And she mentioned you already had a son, Victor. It all seemed to make sense. Lies and more lies. Brenda's life seemed to have been built on a complex web of deceit. What was she like as a mother? I asked, genuinely interested. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel curious about the life of the woman I once loved. Strict but loving, Elliot replied with a nostalgic smile. She worked hard so I wouldn't lack anything. She always insisted that I study, that I prepare myself to be independent. No one else will look out for you, she used to tell me. The words resonated with me. That was the Brenda I had known. Pragmatic, self-sufficient, always looking ahead. You know, in her last days when she was in the hospital, she mentioned something strange, Elliot continued, frowning slightly at the memory. She was heavily sedated, drifting in and out of consciousness. She took my hand and said, I should have told Leonard the truth. He would have been a good father to you. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I thought it was the medication talking. Now her words hit me like a wave. Even on her deathbed, Brenda had kept her secrets, although remorse seemed to have caught up with her at the end. We agreed to take the DNA test that same day. Susan knew a private lab that could process the results in a week. Before leaving, Elliot gave me an awkward hug, a gesture neither of us expected, but it felt natural. Whatever the result, I'm glad I met you, he told me, and I noticed his eyes, so much like mine, were slightly damp. And now, a week later, I have in my hands the answer to the question that has been consuming me. With trembling fingers, I open the envelope and unfold the document. The medical terms and percentages confuse me at first, but at the end of the report, in large letters, is the conclusion. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. Result positive. Tears blur my vision as I take in the information. I have a son, a real son, and grandchildren, a family I never knew existed. I pick up the room's phone and dial Elliot's number with shaking hands. He answers on the second ring. Dad? His voice sounds emotional, and the word Dad brings a lump to my throat. He has received his results too. Yes, son, I reply, savoring the word I can now use with absolute certainty. I just saw the results. Me too. I don't know what to say. It's overwhelming. I know. For me too. An emotionally charged silence settles between us. There are so many things to say. So many lost years to try and recover. Mary and the kids want to meet you, he says finally. We were thinking, if it's okay with you, of coming this weekend. All four of us. The idea of meeting my grandchildren fills me with a joy I haven't felt in decades. I would love that, Elliot. Nothing would make me happier. Perfect. We'll be there Saturday morning. He pauses and adds, Dad, there's something else you should know. Susan called me this morning. They've summoned Victor to make a statement tomorrow. Apparently he tried to sell the house despite the court order. My joy is now mixed with apprehension. What's going to happen? I'm not sure, but Susan says they're taking the case very seriously. There's enough evidence to charge him with several crimes. After hanging up, I share the news with Peter, who congratulates me profusely on the confirmation of my paternity. I knew it, he exclaims, slapping his knee with enthusiasm. Ever since you told me about that young man, I had a hunch he was your blood. And now I have to face Victor, I add, less enthusiastically. It was inevitable, my friend. You can't build a new life without closing the wounds of the past. Peter, with his usual wisdom, is right. But the idea of confronting Victor gives me mixed feelings. Despite everything he's done, despite knowing he's not my biological son. I raised him for 4 decades believing he was. I can't just erase those years, those memories. I sleep little that night, agitated by dreams where Victor and Elliot confront each other, where Brenda watches me from the shadows, where my house vanishes like fog between my fingers. The next morning, Jason enters our room earlier than usual. "Leonard, you have visitors in the main lounge. Miss Susan Randall and your son, Victor." My heart races. I wasn't expecting Victor to come to the nursing home, much less accompanied by the social worker. "He seems pretty agitated," Jason adds in a low voice. "Maybe you want me to go with you." "Thank you, son. I'd appreciate that." With Jason by my side, I head to the main lounge. Victor is pacing nervously back and forth while Susan, sitting in an armchair, watches him with a severe expression. "You?" Victor exclaims upon seeing me, pointing an accusing finger. "How could you do this to me? I'm your son." "Good morning, Mr. Anderson." Susan intervenes, standing up. "Your son has been informed of the accusations against him and the ongoing investigation. He wanted to talk to you before his court appearance this afternoon." "My court appearance? What the hell are you talking about?" Victor turns to me, ignoring Susan. "Are you going to let them accuse me of something I didn't do? Tell them the truth? Tell them you gave me the house voluntarily." "Mr. Anderson," Susan continues, unfazed, "in addition to the illegal sale of the property, your son faces charges for assault, fraud, falsification of medical documents, and misappropriation of funds. The district attorney has gathered enough evidence, including the testimony of the notary who witnessed the forced signing of the documents." The notary talked. The surprise in Victor's voice confirms the truth of the accusations. "He confessed everything," Susan replies. "How you hired him to certify documents knowing your father was being coerced." Victor turns visibly pale. He slumps into an armchair, defeated. "This is ridiculous. I just wanted to protect my father. He couldn't take care of himself anymore." "Protect me?" I find my voice finally. "You call beating me until I was unconscious protection? Forcing me to sign papers you wouldn't even let me read? Abandoning me in this place after taking everything I had?" "I was desperate, Dad," he says. And for the first time, I notice vulnerability in his voice. "I have debts. A lot of debts. Valerie left me, took the kids. She said she wouldn't come back until I fixed our financial situation. And so you decided to steal from me? The person who raised you? Who sacrificed everything for you? You don't understand. I had no other choice. There are always choices, Victor. You could have asked me for help, honestly. I would have done anything for you, like I always did." An uncomfortable silence fills the room. Susan watches us intently, without intervening. "There's something else you need to know," I say, finally, deciding it's time to reveal the whole truth. "Something I discovered recently." I tell him about Brenda's letter, about the dates that didn't match, about the DNA test that had just confirmed we are not biological father and son. Victor listens to me with a mixture of disbelief and horror. "That's not possible. You're making this up to justify what they're doing to me. Your mother conceived you during my absence, when I was working on the oil rigs. Your biological father was my cousin Greg. She confessed it in a letter she never gave me." "You're lying!" Victor shouts, jumping to his feet. "My mother would never do something like that. I also discovered that I have a biological son, Elliot. He was born after your mother left us. She never told me." Victor looks at me as if I've gone insane. "A son? Another son? This is absurd. It's the truth. The DNA test confirms it. Elliot is my biological son. And what do you expect me to do with this information?" he asks, his voice trembling. "Just accept that my whole life has been a lie? That the man I thought was my father now has a real son? I expect you to understand that despite everything, I raised you as my son. I gave you my name, my time, my love. You weren't my blood, but you were my son in every other way." I pause, feeling the weight of my next words. "And that's why. What you did hurts even more." I see his eyes fill with tears. For a moment I see the child he once was. The little boy I carried on my shoulders, who used to come to my bed scared of thunderstorms. "Mr. Anderson," Susan intervenes, "your son is facing serious charges. He could spend several years in prison." I turn to her, making a decision I've been pondering all night. Is there any alternative? I don't want to see him in jail, despite everything. There are plea bargain options, especially if you, as the affected party, are willing to negotiate. But it would involve certain conditions. I look at Victor, who seems to have aged 10 years in the last few minutes. What conditions would those be? First, the complete return of all your assets and funds. Second, a restraining order preventing him from contacting you without supervision. Third, community service and mandatory psychological therapy. And fourth, likely some form of probation. And he would avoid prison? Probably, given his lack of a criminal record and if you intercede on his behalf. I take a moment to consider my options. The part of me that suffered the betrayal, the beatings, and the abandonment wants to see Victor pay for his actions. But another part, perhaps the one that still remembers the child I raised, can't stand the idea of being responsible for sending him to prison. I'm willing to accept a deal, I say, finally, with one additional condition, that Victor publicly acknowledges what he did and apologizes, not just to me, but to everyone he involved in this situation. Victor looks at me, surprised by my mercy. Why would you do that for me? After everything I did to you? Because, despite everything, you were my son for 40 years. And because I want to close this chapter of my life in peace, not with more pain. Susan nods, taking notes. I will speak with the prosecutor to propose these terms, but I can't guarantee he'll accept them. I don't know what to say, Victor murmurs, his gaze fixed on the floor. Don't say anything now, I reply. Think about what you've done, about the consequences of your actions, and when you're ready to speak honestly, then we'll talk. Victor leaves shortly after, escorted by Susan. I watch him walk down the hall, his shoulders slumped, the very picture of defeat. I feel no satisfaction, only a deep sadness for all that was lost, for the years of deceit, for the wounds that may never fully heal. The following days are a whirlwind of legal paperwork, statements, and meetings. The prosecutor accepts my proposed agreement with some minor modifications. Victor will avoid prison, but he will have to complete 300 hours of community service, attend weekly therapy for at least a year, and stay away from me except for supervised visits. My house is returned to me, although Victor had already sold some furniture and valuables. My bank accounts are unfrozen, though with a significantly lower balance than they had. The authorities assure me they will try to recover as much as possible, but I know some things are lost forever. Saturday arrives, and with it the promised visit from Elliot and his family. I've been nervous since early morning, preparing with special care. Jason helps me shave, and Peter lends me a tie for the occasion. You look very elegant, Leonard, Jason tells me, adjusting my shirt collar. You look 10 years younger. Oh, 15, Peter adds with a smile. Nothing makes you younger than joy. When Elliot arrives with Mary and the children, I'm waiting for them in the nursing home garden, seeing my son, my real son, approach with his family, is an emotion I never thought I'd experience at 68. Mary is a petite woman with an easy smile and gentle gestures. She hugs me as if she's known me all her life. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Anderson. Elliot hasn't stopped talking about you all week. The children, initially shy, soon approach with curiosity. Sam, the oldest, has my eyes, while Lucy has inherited my smile. Are you our new grandpa? Sam asks with the frankness of a child. Yes, it seems so, I reply, trying to hide the emotion in my voice. And why didn't we meet you before? The boy insists. It's a complicated story, I intervene, not knowing exactly how to explain our situation to a 7-year-old. Sometimes families get separated and then find each other, Mary explains naturally. The important thing is that we're all together now, right? We spend the day in the nursing home garden, talking, getting to know each other, building the foundations of a relationship that should have started decades ago. Elliot tells me his plans to move to the city, where he's been offered a job with a major construction company. We'd be closer, he says, as we watch the children play on the grass. I could visit you often. Or better yet what? I ask, sensing what's coming. Mary and I have been talking. When you get your house back, maybe you could consider coming to live with us. Or we with you, if you prefer to keep your independence. The offer takes me by surprise, although it's something I've been secretly wishing for since we confirmed our relationship. Are you sure? I don't want to be a burden to you. A burden? Dad, you're my father, the grandfather of my children. Family takes care of each other. Family. The word resonates within me with a new strength. For years I believed my family was just Victor, a son who turned out not to be mine, and who ended up betraying me. And now, suddenly, I have a son, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren, a real family. I would love to, I finally reply, unable to hold back the emotion. Nothing would make me happier. As I watch Lucy run towards me with a flower she just picked from the garden, I think about the strange twists of fate. How a terrible event. The abandonment at the nursing home became the catalyst that allowed me to discover the truth and find my real family. The little girl hands me the flower with a smile that would brighten the darkest day. "For you, Grandpa," she says, and the whole world seems to stop in that perfect moment. I take her in my arms, feeling the wounds of the past begin to heal. The road ahead won't be easy. There are still pending issues with Victor, emotional scars that will take time to fade, and a new family relationship to build from scratch. But for the first time in a long time, the future looks bright, full of possibilities. "Thank you, my princess," I reply to Lucy, carefully placing the flower in my shirt pocket close to my heart. "I'll keep it forever." And so, sitting in the garden of the nursing home I once considered my prison, surrounded by a family I never knew I had, I understand that sometimes the end of one road is just the beginning of a much better one. That even at 68, life can offer second chances. And that blood, after all, does matter. But not in the way I always believed. If my story impacted you, subscribe now to hear real cases like mine every week. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss new testimonies that will change the way you see life.